That's effectively what grips is. It's just Meccano for adults. And we just build heavy things and try and get the movement of the shot in place.
Welcome to Filmmaking Framed, your video podcast uncovering the realities of filmmaking. I'm your host, Danion Hughes.
And I'm your host, Tom Dexter.
With us today is Paul Synnott, a grip on projects such as The Masters of the Air, The Great Escaper, and Treason. Great to have you with us, Paul.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you.
So, Paul, let's dive right in. Can you define the role of a grip?
It's actually one of the questions I get, or any grip gets asked a lot, is what is a grip? I even have like videos saved on my phone under what is a grip. I've heard people describe it as camera support, which doesn't really delve into it enough. I would describe it as more of the movement, security, and positioning of the camera and operator.
Interesting. And so you're responsible for what the camera goes on?
Yeah, any movement that they want done, that's generally through the grip department or sections of. Also securing of the operator. If it goes from handheld, static, on a crane, on a dolly, sticks, slider on a car, trains, planes.
Could you define sticks and slider for the audience that don't know?
Sure. So sticks is a tripod. So you have generally tools and short sticks will be ones that can get high levels or lower levels. And they're like a heavy duty tripod. And a slider is a sliding base plate which the camera and the head will be attached to. So you have the camera, the head attached to sliders of various lengths, being 2 foot, 3 foot, 6 foot. Some even go up to 10 foot, but then you could use a track.
And track?
And track is like a train track, but it's in smaller sections. We can lay it down pretty much anywhere, even unlevel ground, because we'll level that. And that's normally for things like a dolly, which a lot of people will be familiar with different types, but it holds the camera and it's able to track forward and back and normally jib up and down as well. So it's that movement within the scene.
And you guys would also be responsible for rigging onto vehicles?
Yes, indeed. Where we have qualifications, people will be more adept at certain types. But yes, we'll be rigging onto inside cars or outside as well. On bigger films, you'd put cameras either on a bonnet or the car itself would be on like an A-frame or a low loader. And so that's so the drivers, the actors, don't have to worry about driving. And they can be driven around, and we'll position the cameras either on the side, inside the car, wherever is desired.
And so you mentioned qualifications because you're one of the only departments that actually has qualifications in order needed to progress. So could you go into some detail into that?
Sure. So the positions we have in the grip department, we basically have trainee. So you come in, you learn about the skills, the trade. Then we have MVQ levels 2, 3 advanced. And then we're on the same skill tree as well. There's also crane technician qualifications and head tech as well, whenever cranes and remote heads come out. And so you'll be qualified on them, tested on, your safety, how to set it up. And yeah, there's a lot of safety aspect within the grip world.
And what are the departments you work closely with in grips?
I believe grips actually is one of the few departments which actually deals with almost every department. If I can go through that, let me think. So directly on set, we have the camera department. We are entangled throughout everything. Wherever the camera wants to go, they'll be the ones setting it up with the lens, the filters and such. And we'll be directing with them of the position of where the director of photography or the operator wants it to go, whether it's on a table, on someone's leg, attached to a chest, or such and such. With that, if it's within a set, then we have art department. And that may require, if there's a shot of you two, like we were going side to side here, well, I might need tables, chairs, sofas, things removed out of the way in order for us to fit in along those areas. So we work very closely with art department. With lighting as well, they'll normally be within sets, so we may need to position ourselves through things and also not be within lights or shadows and anything like that. Sound department, we don't want any of our stuff to squeak, and normally we have to either change to softer shoes or get some sprays out, and this happens. You work, with a lot of departments. Locations. One of the things I learned when I was coming in is 2 rules: never annoy catering or locations. Be best friends, because you get the best parking spots and you don't get poisoned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one department I'll add with that is accounts, so your invoices get paid nice and prompt.
Yes, that's a good one. Although I always forget to send in invoices.
Until the end.
Right until the end. And they go, who are you? Who's this?
And what are some of the kind of cranes or, more advanced? So you've mentioned track, slider, dolly, which are ones that get used the most. What's the kind of really fancy equipment that might require some kind of carefully handling, particularly when you're filming on location?
Well, funny enough, some of the fancy equipment or even the even lower budget equipment ranges from all the way down from handheld up to cranes and car rigs, or things like this. There's one called descender rigs as well, where some people have seen the shots, like if it's through a stairway and it's just the camera just going right down. It's been used several times over. It's fantastic as well. But that's through wire rigs as well. So a descender rig, if there's a circuit or a staircase and you just want to drop straight down, if you can't get a crane into there, or certain ways there are specially designed rigs that will do that.
And that's all done through wires?
That can be done through wires, cables, or you can have fixed arm sections as well. And so, there's a lot of variety, and you need a lot of variety because things will change from shot to shot. Although there aren't any new, someone tell me, there aren't any new shots.
Okay, go on.
So in terms of, you have a wide shot, you have a close up, you have this. There are lots of shots, but there's no new ones that are being made. There's just either new technology in order to do it, or there's the equipment. But generally, once you learn,
Or a new environment where you have to achieve it.
yes,
Yeah.
And the environments, they vary.
Tom Cruise is just salivating at the prospect of filming in the International Space Station.
Yes, and he will.
Yeah, he something that's an ambition that he is attempting to achieve. And there's lots of jokes in the locations department about how we're going to arrange parking that day.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Could you talk a bit about the prep that goes into the shoot? So how early would you be brought on? And obviously then you had to see the locations and design those shots presumably with the camera department about what they're trying to achieve, so that you can come up with solutions and get the right kit. Could you talk through that process?
Absolutely. So we'd go to, when you go on recce's, you'd see the locations. That locations department would have sourced out, and from there we'd be discussing everything from where vehicles we parked and equipment. In terms of access, access can be a very hardy thing as well, because if we can't get a piece of equipment that we're thinking of into an area or through an area via restrictions, or there's a road or pathway, then, or even staircase and doorways and such, then we need to rethink how we're going to do it. That's why a lot of equipment, a lot of our stuff is built heavy, but then a lot of it's collapsible as well into smaller sections. So even the smaller sections are very heavy, but it's so we can get pieces of equipment and build inside an area. That's where we can have smaller cranes or jibs and break them down and take them into whatever location and build it from there. So there's a bit of engineering into that. Then we speak to the operator and the director of photography as well, and discuss what's the mood for the shot. So is it a party scene? Is it a wake? Is it a will reading, or it's someone just waking up in bed. What's the mood of the scene? Because that might change the equipment that we use. What's happening? Is it a panic? Is it in action? Is someone running away from someone? It's like, how fast are they going to run? Like, if it's a street scene, can we run with them? Do we need like a rickshaw or something that we can pull, or it needs to be motorized, or on a vehicle, or on a bike or a car? And
Rickshaw, for anyone who doesn't know.
a rickshaw effectively is a seat on wheels which we can pull, normally on either 3 wheels, sometimes 4, or maybe even 2. It all varies quite a bit because we need the adjustments. But effectively, someone will be sitting in a chair like an operator or Steadicam operator, where we can fix their rig. I'll go into Steadicam as well. And it's so we can pull them at fast pace. So you have 1 or 2 grips. We'll be pulling and maneuvering the rickshaw.
How much creativity is there in your role as a grip? So you talk about planning these shots and the mood of the scene and therefore what equipment you might use. Is that creativity coming from you? Is it collaborative with the camera department and the director, or do they tend to kind of tell you what they want based on the mood of the scene, and then you are creatively coming up with a solution?
There is a lot of creativity as well. Normally the more important shots are discussed beforehand, whether you need certain piece of equipment or certain angles, access, and these things are done beforehand, and we either work out access or what equipment we'll need. But on the day, in terms of we'd like to try something a bit different. We've done these shots a lot on this sort of scene. We might try a track and a jib and doing this, and there'll be discussions on what we can do. And on the spot, we kind of need to figure out, do we have the equipment? Can we do it? What sort of Meccano Lego type build are we going to make? Because that's effectively what Grips is just Meccano for adults. And we just build heavy things and try and get the movement of the shot in place. Or it might be, if someone wants a high and wide in a listed building, it's like, we have to be careful of the environment, as always. But if it's a 20-foot ceiling, which some of the listed buildings do have, then we need to get up to that area. It might be fixed, but how do we adjust it? And so we work out what equipment, whether it will be something we have to take down and adjust and put back up, or is it a remote head? Is it going to be on a stand or a dolly or ladder pods? And so there's a variety of equipment.
Ladder pod?
Ladder pod is effectively a roided up version of a tripod. So it is 3 sets of ladders with a triangular plate, and we fixed straps midway on the bottom, and you'd put that into position and then raise it up to and you raise it up to your desired height. And it's a souped up tripod.
And then would the operator of it go up the ladder, or would it be controlled remotely?
Normally, it's the operator will go up there. So it'll learn about positioning of things like that. So on cameras, they are effectively, when you look at them, the eyepiece that the operator will look through will be on its left side normally. It can be interchangeable, but 99% of the time's on the left. So you'd want the operator to be not directly behind the camera. So where you have the legs of the ladders, the ladder pod, you have to shift it slightly. So they'd be slightly up on the left in order to see what they're doing, because you don't want to be directly behind. And it's small things like that where you need to go, here's your positioning, you're looking at this, you're looking at that. Because if they're up a ladder, you don't want them to be off balance. So that's where a lot of our focus is. Firstly, it's the operator, and then secondly, it's the camera.
Makes sense.
What's the balance between those very heavily planned shots and the improvised ones?
No balance whatsoever. None. The improvised shots can happen 20 times a day easily, but then if you have planned shots, they can take up an entire normal shooting day as well. It's similar to, like, whenever you have the scripts They have on the call sheet, you'll have 3 2/8 of a page of dialogue. So you have dialogue of 3 pages, and 2/8 are just like normally small sections. But then you have shoots like Ben-Hur. I believe 1/8 of the page is chariot race, which is over half the film. So 1/8 of a page turns into something like 6 months' work.
Or it can be 1/8 of a page, someone walking across a kind of crowded festival, and like I think it's Spectre where you have that really long shot of Bond
at the very start, walking along the balcony, and you have the festival.
I imagine that must have taken kind of weeks to prep.
I believe so as well. Sadly, I have not done a Bond yet.
If you listen to this, book Paul on the next one, please.
Yeah. What are the biggest misconceptions people have about the grip department?
Our knuckles are actually not dragging on the floor the whole time. There wasn't an old school mentality of grips are just sort of the knuckle dragging, the
Cavemen.
Cavemen, the gorillas of the crew. I can understand some of that because we do generally have broad shoulders and carry heavy things, so our arms do get a bit longer throughout the years. But yeah, misconception are, although our job is actually very mature, we are not. So my personal view is that we're like the big brother on set. So you'd have the first AD, the first assistant director, who would run the floor. But generally for safety and movement, we talk directly with actors if there's things moving in shot, if they have to step over certain things as well. We help and advise through that. But we take it seriously, but we like to have a laugh as well.
Yeah.
And it's good stuff.
And let's go into you. How did you get into the industry? What was your first role? Let's explore that.
Right. So I've got some siblings who either went to drama school or actually were actors as well, and so they had their first little inkling, and made some friends as well, which has helped. My first ever introduction was through one of these friends, who's actually now my sister-in-law. So very good friends with the brother. And it was Caroline Story. Love you, Caroline. And she is an art director. So she was on a film and wanted to...
I love Caroline. Give her my best.
You know Caroline?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, sister-in-law. There you go. So it was on a film and she needed a couple of extra bodies to help de-rig a house. So I was just working somewhere else at the time and doing 2 weeks. It's like, yeah, okay. And so my introduction was going there, went for a couple of weeks. First day on set, walked into, I think it was a military building, as in like a complex, like an old Air Force base. And the house walked into, it just looked rotten. As in, it was made to be a drug den, effectively. So just brown smears of something on the wall and this, that. It was like, what are we doing here? This looks awful. And Caroline just goes, okay, well, here's a spray, here's a cloth, just wipe the wall. And just pristine white behind. It's all some of their tactics of dirty down and just making it look as awful as it did. It was very good. So I spent the first day just doing this. Halfway through the first day, I believe it was a third AD came up and asked if a couple of the art department boys could help prepare a scene for the next couple of days out in the forest. Caroline nominated myself and someone else. And so we were taken into a nearby forest and told that, okay, so we're going to have an actress running through the fields. And so we're going to barefoot, so we're going to clear some nettles through here. We have a path marked out. And then once that's done, this section here, we need to be dug down a bit. And then the special effects guys are going to come over with the band later. Okay, instructions. ABC. Okay, fine. Started doing that. Cleared an area, dug down a bit. A Luton van turned up later. It's like, okay, you must be the special effects guys. Open up the shutter, and it was full of fake dead bodies of various ages. And that was creepy just to see as a first day on set. This just being whacked open, and we chucked them into the pit because we were making a body pit, which hadn't been told. And they're all, the dexterity on them and everything. You could change their fingers and arms and chuck them in. Got really weirdly creative. And then there was like slime and maggots and added, and that was just being made for the next day. So that was my introduction into the film world.
That is certainly a memorable one.
Just a bit, yeah. And from there, met other friends, and I've worked in art department, and then have done work as locations, and then there was lighting. Actually, I've done a few. There was lighting, locations, art department.
A little bit in production.
There was production as well, and I think I assisted stunts on one film, and obviously gripping, where I landed and loved.
What was it about gripping? Because obviously you've worked in so many departments, you clearly had options to pursue kind of across the industry. What drew you to gripping?
So my first introduction to gripping, so I was hired as a driver on a shoot, and they said, okay, just going to drive a Luton van. It's going to be the camera van. Do you think we could double up your role? It was a lovely shoot as well, but wasn't a huge budget, so we can't just have just a driver. We'd love to have you either as a camera trainee or a grip trainee. Now, I had done work in lighting before as a lighting trainee, and so the stands and bits. I thought, okay, yeah, that's quite similar. I hadn't touched a camera. I didn't want to touch a camera without, knowing the value of these things, or with the lens.
They're quite intimidating.
They are. Now,
50 grand in one lens, just in your hand easily.
Absolutely, yeah. Nowadays, I'll just throw the camera somewhere. It's great. But as a first introduction, it was, would you want to touch this? Like, okay, don't want to hold a lens in case I hold it wrong, or accidentally pick my nose, wipe on there. No, that's going to look awful. Or the filters, or the batteries, or plug something in wrong, and just like, I'm not going to. No, I'll go into if it's okay. I was grip trainee, and that was my first introduction. And although there are some similar parts, very different to lighting from what I had in my mind. So that it's rather than having structures like the stands and the lights on here, it'd mostly be fixed, or you do this and it'd be weights. There'll be elements of it as well. There's just more. Not so much in terms of electrics and actually wiring and other parts as well, but there's now movement involved. There's balancing and weights, and if you have a heavy operator and they want to move one side, or even someone lighter, and just adjusting with height differences. We were talking about the apple boxes before as well. One of the most useful things on a set, bar none. An apple box itself is effectively an 8-inch by 12-inch by 20-inch box with handles that you can put down as a table or as a seat, or to raise things up. And that's a full apple box. And then half of that is a half apple, quarter apple, and a pancake, which is the flattest one.
Interesting. And how big is a pancake?
1 inch by 12-inch by 20. But then you can have custom variations of where people do half the size in order to get in certain areas. And
yeah, I know crew are always wanting to stay on the good side of the grips in case they want to borrow an apple box for a seat. It's your equivalent of the locations being able to park vans closer.
Yes, indeed.
A little carrot or stick that can, just smooth the departmental tension.
Yeah, you have focus pullers going, okay, can I borrow an apple box, please? Just sit down because they've been doing this. Or lighting needs to, or art department needs to reach curtains as well, rather than we have to go to the van, which is now here and around there. We've got an Apple box, which they're always on set all the time. It's like we can just go up, we can just stand up, just raise us up a foot, do these. Nice. So yeah, Apple box is very handy. Very handy.
And having worked kind of across departments, what are the skills and traits that make someone generally good at the film industry? And then I want to dive into what are the things that make someone specifically good at being a grip.
Okay. Hopefully I'll answer. I know you've covered on other aspects of, well, generally being on time. These are the normal things, being on time. Kind of knowing what you're doing is always handy. A good attitude is very helpful. Sense of humour goes down well because although you're on, virtually everyone's freelance. So with that, the networking part, it does happen throughout. And you'll remember people from jobs you've worked on 5, 6, 10 years prior. And you can keep communicating as well. But then you'll remember the person because they're small circles, but they might go wider field. Because you might be on one job for 6 months, another job for 3, and then another 6 months, and then you're on holiday for that. And so by the time you meet someone that you did get along with, it might be 3 years later. But then it will be like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, it's one of the strange things about the industry is how quickly you build close relationships that can sustain months of virtually no contact. And then when you see them again, it's like it's been a week and a half.
Yeah. I do have a theory that, so where you have either a film or a TV show, there's an end goal. There's a final product that we all work towards. And so it's something that everyone's gone through together from A to B. And it's just like the worst of the shoots, like the ones that are either badly scheduled or badly written or just badly shot, or whatever happens, the tougher the time, I feel the stronger the relationships you can have. Because we got through that shit show together. It's like that was our Dunkirk. That was our that was our Normandy. And you'll have that, even if it's just for bitching, you'll have that to go on with. It's like, I remember that time and there's things like, all crew love a good bitch.
Yeah, it's surprisingly unifying.
Yeah, it's a vent.
So we've explored working on set and freelancer life and what makes someone generally good. But what is it that you would say makes someone particularly good at gripping? So if someone's listening to this and they know they want to work in film and TV, and then they can hear that description and go, actually, maybe being a grip is the path for me.
Okay. If they've ever, as a child, played with Lego or Meccano, or if they've had an interest or an intrigue into building or creating as well. It covers lots of different aspects. Effectively, we're like low-level engineers, but we have to know the equipment that's been made and its purposes, because there's a lot of variety in almost all pieces of equipment. So what it can do and what it can't do, and have enough. You'll gain the knowledge through training of what you can and can't do, reasons why you choose A over B. But effectively, it's how creative you can get with your things. Because if you ask 100 grips to create one rig, you'll get 100 different rigs. Because there's just like, okay, can you do this?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, especially because when you're working on set, when you're working with lighting, like you mentioned before, you need to not have the rig be in a place that's going to affect the shadows on the frame, particularly if it's the same scene but now being shot in a slightly different way. Or if if you're filming in a heritage site, are there any location pieces that can't be moved? Like there's a period house that has this gorgeous table right in the entrance when you come in, that's from the Napoleonic era, and you cannot touch it, you cannot move it. So if you're thinking about how you're going to get camera angles in that room,
and you have to adjust with either going up and over. So if there's a shot like along this mic as well, we can't see here because we're doing this, and the movement's going to go around to here. It's like, okay, and then you have this, like the Napoleon table, which you can't get over. It's like, okay, maybe you could do a tracking move, but then you have to build up and over and down, because that will go over the mic, the table, but still get you in the position that you want to go. You can have builds like that, or like we were saying with the with James Bond as well. That walk along the edge was done with a crane, which was, I'm sure you've seen like behind the scene video of it, but it was a crane on a track that just, well, it is telescopic, so it means it goes in and out of itself, so it has a range, and that just went up and followed him, and it was up and over a railing onto where his path was walking, and then was able to turn around. So you have to work out where you're not going to see as well, and
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, particularly with that, how you construct it, how you build it. Would it be fair to say that particularly when you're starting in a more junior role, physical fitness and strength is, I would say, more important for your department than it is traditionally across the industry?
It can be. It really can be as well. But you can definitely employ the work smarter, not harder.
Yep.
So there are heavy pieces of equipment that we do deal with. So even if we never ask anyone to break their back doing anything, although there may be times when either through safety or access or anything like that, or even just building parts, that a bit of oomph may be required. But then if we plan for that, we can get in extra people, extra bodies. We've all got one back. I know people can get hip replacements and knees and things, but back, I think, is still on the backlog. Yeah, physical fitness I would say, is a good thing as well. It's not like a top priority of a general life, and the work and the hours that we do. It's probably a good thing to invest in as well. In terms of strength, then as long as you know how to, so manual handling, which is one of the things that is implemented straight away. So it's lifting with your legs and not your back, and don't sort of wrench your neck whenever lifting many of the heavy things we have, including just weights sometimes.
Because how heavy is a kind of standard dolly?
Ooh, about 220. I'm mixing up the measurements now. Standard, it turns into stone-wise, it's about 10 stone itself. That's one of the smaller ones. Effectively a 4-man lift.
Yeah.
And then it goes up in size with different types as well.
One of the scariest moments of my film career was there was a listed building with these gorgeous stone steps and no elevator. And I was asked to help carry the dolly up the stairs. And you just know that if you bash the dolly against the stairs, you're going to cause irreparable, very difficult to repair damage. So you're just,
Okay.
you are like pulling with all your might. And
Yep.
it came off without a hitch. But it was one of those where it was like, if anyone drops any corner of this, that is going to be a lot of weight going against the stairs.
That's sometimes one of the times you'll find a grip will be their most stern is lifting the dolly. So if there is either don't have the enough crew members on the department, then we may ask at locations or someone else who is available. They'll get stern because, okay, if you have a smaller dolly and it's a 4-person lift, there are handles you can hold on to. But then if one person lifts before the others, they can throw their own back out or someone else's. And no one wants that. So you'll find, okay, it's like, right, each grab a handle, okay, on my count, like they'll normally get stern. On my count, on 3, we'll all lift because it just makes it easier. And then they'll keep communicating through. So it tells when you're okay, we'll put it down, we'll do this. And yeah, if we have to invite someone else in to help, it's like follow instructions. Because I've seen that before as well, where someone didn't. And the grip went, okay, put it down. Like we didn't move anywhere. We just lifted up, but they just went too eager. Put it down. Okay, everyone shake off. Fine. Very sorry. If we can swap you out with someone else. because that puts other people at risk.
Yep.
And then we had a laugh later. It was all good. But it's a case of, well, we can only count to 3 grips anyway. So that's handy. So 1, 2, 3. Done.
And I think you're absolutely right. And I really want to highlight that you may want to be keen, you may want to be enthusiastic, but you have to protect your body, because particularly as a freelancer, you can only earn while you're working.
True.
So if you throw out your back and that affects your ability to work, it's going to affect your ability to earn. And ultimately, while we look out for each other, and we absolutely do, like, film sets are fucking great for that, but the buck has to start and stop with you for how you protect your body.
Absolutely. And that covers for all crew on all sets as well. It's in every health and safety part as well. If there's a hazard, who's responsible? And the answer is always everyone who's ever there. Yeah, you're responsible for either notifying the person or trying to fix it as well. If you can't, get someone who can. Everyone looks after each other. It literally is a family.
The equivalent in locations is we have easy ups, which are known because they are easy to set up. They're basically mobile gazebos. And they weigh, standard 3x3 is 29 kilos. And there are plenty of people who will then try and carry and can carry 2 easy ups at once. And they build the strength to that. But there are plenty of cases of people who have not yet built up to the strength who will do it, who then injure their back because they're trying to impress. And it's like, that kudos you get for being able to do it, great feeling. That pain you get when you do it and you couldn't do it,
kudos.
not worth it.
It's also carrying chairs. I see a lot of, I've seen a lot of location teams, especially marshals, and they're like, all right, I'm going to carry 6 in each arm, which is a lot of chairs. It doesn't look that heavy, but if you've got to carry it, 300 meters, near impossible.
I do always ask, or I like asking people, are they carrying water jugs or easy ups or anything heavy where it's 2 hands? It's like, have you got the time? Love it. Or even with the camera, you're flying like
yeah.
They
you have to put it down.
They can't
check.
do anything.
Yeah. On one of my first jobs, I went to the job because it would identify who the person was. But I was carrying easy up in one shoulder and weights in the other hand up a hill on a very sunny day. And my boss radioed and says, Danion, you there? So I put the easy up down. Go and says, go for Danion. He says, actually, don't need you. Cool. Pick everything up, take 2 steps. Actually, Danion. Yep, go ahead. I know. All good, don't need you. And this happened about 5 times. And then eventually I turned and I just saw him just in a good-naturedly.
Was
just
he behind you as well?
Yeah. He was
watching.
And just laughing. And it was a fun crew. So it was just a joke or something you do with a new guy. But I remember that as just it is part of what you have to go through and expect it at some point when you're lifting heavy things that have to be put down.
Oh yeah, if you ever worked, everyone knows like the construction jokes everyone plays.
Yeah.
Like, can someone go for a long wait?
Yep. Can someone get me a skyhook, please?
Yeah. But the thing is, we actually do have long waits. On occasion, like if cranes come out and such, but I still use that joke all the time. There is actually something called a skyhook now.
Wow.
You can still send someone for that. There's loads of them. Bucket of steam.
Yeah, can I get some rainbow paint, please?
New bubble for the spirit level.
Love that one as well. Yeah, so many.
No, but on a serious note, I think there's a real pressure in the film industry. There's so much to achieve in a day. So you're always feeling like you have to go fast. You're freelancing, so you're always trying to prove yourself. And you do have to consider health and safety at all times when you're doing it.
The pace that a crew will work at in general is faster than a walking pace in London, which is speedy already. But yeah, it needs to be done effectively, safely, and even if someone is going, come on, how long's this? It's like
I watched a location person. We had like a massive gas canister, a heater, and the camera was swinging around to shoot in that direction where the heater was. It was a winter outdoor shoot, so and this location person was like picked up this massive gas canister, and I said, "Do you want to radio through to get someone to help?" And they said, "Oh no, it's fine." They were like a assistant location manager, so they were trying to prove themselves.
Right.
And they lifted up this gas canister, and then they decided to walk backwards down these wooden steps, and they were like, their veins popping in their head as they were lifting it, and they started walking backwards down these stairs, and and then someone had to catch them because they were about to fall. And
And-
that was one where I just remember this was like my first job, and it's like, you've got one back. And it's basically this person, A, was trying to prove themselves, B, was trying to go fast because the camera was swinging and didn't want to be the reason that they were held up. And there's just so many things that understood why they did it, but just it was a terrible, terrible idea.
It's like, almost like a panic reaction.
Yeah.
Those things we all have to look out for each other on all
Yeah.
sorts. Yeah.
And thinking, how do I get ahead? What is going to be in shot? One of the things that if they're not done ahead of time, it will be a go, 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 go. And that's when people do stupid things. Because that gas canister, just for the audience, 49 kilos plus the weight of the bottle.
You lift it with 2 people, minimum.
Yep.
You need a trolley, but this was on stairs, so I understood. I was wondering if we could go back a bit to how you got into the industry.
Sure.
So you tried out multiple different jobs, and then you got this grip trainee role, and you quite enjoyed it. I have a kind of 2 questions. One, how long were you trying out different roles for before you kind of settled on one? And then once you'd found that grip trainee role and decided you quite enjoyed it, were you then continuously working in grips from there, or you still hopping around a bit?
The other roles that I delved into, so lighting, locations, art department, I did quite a bit of art department as well, because made good friends with them as well. So with that, there was either another invite. It's like, oh, someone's feeling a bit poorly. Can you help me out for a couple of days? Like, yeah, sure, I can do that. Or can we help drive this? That's fine. I worked in production for a bit. And so that went on for a couple of years. So I had managed to stay employed within the industry throughout these multiples as well as an entrance. Because I effectively started as a runner with a lifeblood, I think, if you get good runners on set, because everyone can focus so much on this shot's happening here, that's going on there. This is so many angles are going on. There's the runners are the lifeblood. It's a case of, have you drank? Have you eaten? Where's this? Someone goes, any little bits of information. It's like, there's a runner. Where's the nearest toilet? It's like, it's down there. There we go. Or there's a nice one which no one knows about, which is back there. Locations aren't telling everyone. But
Another one of the powers
I've
of locations.
yeah, you find the best toilets. You tell no one. I've actually seen people hiding them before, like with like a sheet of Corex or like in front of the door. Always find them though. Always find them.
So then you found this grip trainee role, and then did you carry on from grips from there?
Effectively, yes. I think I've helped out with a few other smaller projects as well, but I was advised that if you want to get into gripping, then stick with it. It is seen to be a better thing because there are qualifications and time and investments made by yourself and others, that if you want to stick it out, then do. And if you're able to just keep on as a trainee, and that's what I managed to do. So I've worked with several other grips and found out how I wanted to work, or more importantly, how I didn't want to work.
Could you go into some detail into that?
So everyone's got their different personalities and how they either act on set, whether they stick with either a stern mentality or a militant, or they can be just jokes and laughs the entire time. So there are, like everyone's personality, everyone has a work ethic. So going through that and watching how people discuss shots or suggestions with the directors or the operators, or if there is an issue and saying, oh, we want to do this, it's like, no, we can't do this because of X, Y, Z. How they hold themselves and how they put that across, whether it's needed to be, no, you can't do that, or it's a case of this and that, and just give me off your reasons. So it's either standing your ground or convincing someone as well. So it's those tactics which are used. So it's through that I've worked out how I want to work, because everyone is slightly differently. Hence the 100 grips, one rig, you get 100 rigs. It's also how they work the floor and deal with other members of either the cast or the crew or through production. It's through that. And you just develop your own character, your own personality, and of how you'd like to work.
And how long were you a trainee before stepping up from there?
I actually trained. Generally, it's been suggested that between sort of 3 to 4 years is a good amount of time to train. I trained, I think, just shy of 5 because I wanted to just learn a bit more and about some different parts, and I was just getting used to getting in my comfort zone through this time, and either covering B camera rigs or the occasional C camera, and I was just taking it at my own pace. Because if you decide or are encouraged to step up before I think you're ready, then that's when things can
It can set you back.
It can set you back, yeah, or it just chucks you in the deep end. So whether you sink or swim is down to yourself. So yes,
And during that, when you're a grip trainee, are you doing these qualifications whilst you're working, or do you do them in your own personal time and you pay for them yourself? And how does that work?
So training itself normally between about 3 years. You can do about 3 years of training, and with that, you'll be introduced with the equipment and familiarize yourself with what it can do and how variable it can be, and that will be something you focus on mostly with the training, and then you go in the later parts when you actually look after cameras, and it's like why you would choose one option over another. That this can be down to personal preference again, or there can be reasons of, well, this one has a swivel action, or this piece of equipment can do that, or can raise separately as well. So it gives you enough knowledge on how variable things are that you choose your equipment, and then you deal with, as you progress, you'll be dealing more directly with your operator and how things are done on set. There are situations and scenarios where it's almost like a set etiquette. It's how you act on set as well. And I know you had George on here before. I told him that years ago. It's not his.
Controversy, audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's episode 7, George Price, if anyone wants to go back and listen to that.
It's
Yeah.
Stand by props. Yeah.
Like a versus match. Grips versus props. I have been asked, what's the heaviest thing a grip carries? Art department, I think, is one. Definitely. So as you go on, you'll be training more, and there'll be situations like there'll be hard topics on set of jobs you work on, whether it be scenes of a sexual nature or of violence or of drug use, or there are multiple areas which can make people uncomfortable, either working on the sets themselves, or it's a heavy subject for the action and the actors as well. So it's knowing how to, if there are jokes and humor on set, it's a case of, okay, this is happening today. Everyone just take a step back, or we're going to have these people on set in particular. We're going to have there's a scene of a sexual nature as well, so we're going to have reduced crew. We're doing this, and it's learning through these processes when you're closer into the action, the epicenter of what's happening. And as you go on that, then once you either believe you're ready or have been advised to step up, there is now actually a training for grips to step up, which is done by the London Grip branch. So on the website, there's now a purple badge, I believe you get. So it's to check that you know the equipment, what it can do, how to set it up safely and in different environments. And once you're checked for that, you can be stepped up from, effectively, it's the uncertified grips. So you have trainee, then uncertified grips. Then you go and do your certification, your MVQ, qualification. And then we have the level 2s and then level 3s and onwards.
Yeah, makes sense.
I was wondering, how do you structure your learning? So you've come in on your first job as a grip trainee, and then you maybe work a 6-month job, which, a lot of jobs tend to be shorter, but could be a 6-month job.
Yep.
And you you've got certain pieces of equipment. I guess is it all coming from yourself? So you're having to learn. You know what you need to learn, or are you working with the same grip on each job when you're a trainee? Like, how do you structure it so you know that you? Because like, okay, this is what I'm envisioning, right? So a grip hires a trainee
Yes.
that they've not worked with before. They know they're a trainee, but how do they know what you know? Because it's such a skill based role.
One of the terms that I've learned and I kind of live by, and I do teach these to others as well, is no one is born knowing any of this. That's a life thing. It's not even industry. No one's born knowing any of this. So the whole, so I'm not going to teach you how to suck eggs, or even though I don't know how to suck eggs, no one does. It's a case of, if you are teaching you something already, someone should take the lesson again. It's a case of, do you know how to do this? Or I'm going to show you how I like to do these things.
So a grip would phone a grip trainee and say, "Hey, we've got this job coming up. Let's have a quick interview." They'd talk. You'd have a conversation. Then they'd get a sense of what you know. And then when you're on the job, they'd say, "Oh, we're setting up this crane. Have you done that before?" You say yes or no. Then it's kind of a sort of quite a natural process like that.
It is, and there's no silly questions. If you don't know how to do something, then don't bullshit it. We're in an industry where it is primarily bullshit. It's all, or vast majority, is made up. It's all imagination and creative as well. So when we have crew members as well who are trying to bullshit each other, it's seen very quickly. It's like, can you do that? Yeah. It's like, we don't want yes men, we want accuracy and safety and look after yourself, look after others.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
I can't highlight that enough, especially with grips, because it's one where the potential for people to get hurt, I would say, is it's not stunts, but it's one of the departments where you are dealing with very heavy equipment. You've got to protect your back. You've got to protect the camera operator. If you've got a rig that is unsafe, it can fall and injure someone or injure a member of the team. So it's not just, are you going to make your boss's life harder? If you claim you can do something and you can't, you can be putting people at risk.
Absolutely.
Well, even if you're not, you can also hold up the shoot, which costs the production time and money.
Which producers hate.
Sorry, yeah. Maybe I'm coming from the wrong angle.
Fine.
But even if you've done everything safely, but you've set something up wrong, so it won't work, so you then have to dismantle it all and rebuild it. So you've cost 15, 30, 45 minutes extra time before you can turn over on the next shot. That still has an impact. Yeah. And that will have an impact on people's perception of you as well, eventually.
That's where the trial and error of through training and realizing what the equipment can do, how variable it is. This piece can do this amount of things, but that one can't. And so, it's learning all this. But then it can be something as, like if you watch any one scene of any film or TV as well, you'll have different types of shots and you'll see the similarities. You have things like dirty shots, which is effectively, if the focus is on yourselves, but the camera wants to be behind me, a clean shot, you'll not see me whatsoever. But a dirty shot, you might get a shoulder or some ear as well, and that's there. So if the camera's right behind an actor's face, you can't say that. You need to let them know that, one, it's there, or if their action includes, "Oh, I'm going to storm away and get out," I'm going to hit myself with a camera, or this, or there's a slider going behind, so there's a restriction of movement. So that needs to be conveyed as well.
Do you, as a grip department, communicate that directly to the actors, or does the AD pass that on?
It can be either. Things can change so quickly that we become very familiar with the actors generally on set because we are right there as well. So you have the directors will mostly talk with the actors about how they want the motion to go. You have the DPs and the operators as well. They'll talk about, here's where this is what we want to see and what we want to do. If you can hit your marks on the floor, so you hit this position, so we can hit there. And then if there's equipment that comes into play, either stepping over track or there's a restriction of some sort, we can inform them directly. Because if we don't,
it might get forgotten.
And no one else does. It's more of a, make sure it's like we're looking after each other, including actors.
Can I just really delve down to get my head around it more than anything? So, in terms of the qualifications, you do those in your own time or when you're on a job, like the MVQs and stuff?
So there's a trainee logbook, which I believe is now online, where as you work throughout a job or you go to hire houses in your own time, or even during a job as well, whenever the opportunity is available, they'll be logging in what they've done, what they've experienced on a set as well, reasons for doing it, and that will be updated as they're training. And for the MVQs themselves, it's very much the same thing, just more, just more intense. Of okay, so you have documents, like picture documents of the rigs that you've built, reasons for doing it, or what job it was on, what was the action, what happened, if there was a risk assessment as well, because we do risk assessments on either locations or the equipment, or if there's cranes or everything as well. Yeah, so it's more in depth.
And you carry that with you at all times as you're training, so you'll always be able to track your own learning and show it to a grip that hires you. And
where it's online now as well, you can,
and that's
you can
yeah.
delve into more. I remember having hired the book as well. I actually lost the book, so I got another book, and then when I did actually step up, I found both books. It's like I've already doubled up. Yeah, but with that, it's documenting that. Okay, you've seen this, you know how that's set up. This, this is proof of this and that, rather than or just showing some unique situations. We might have car rigs, or there might be a horse riding rig as well on some other period pieces or such, and it can be very interesting because you never have two of the same days, although some may be similar. It's really varied for everyone.
So when you're on one of these jobs and you've built, say, a car rig, do you, as the grip trainee, have to remember, I got to take a photo of this? I mean, you presumably you take a photo of them anyway, just for reference. But you get a photo of it so you know to put it in your training. So you're basically always aware of your own learning and your own path.
You should.
It's
something you can reflect back on as well, as case of if anything needs to be repeated. So if there's a certain setup or you haven't seen this setup as well. If you're training, you'll be doing it under. So car rigs are normally done by level 3 grips as well as they go on. So you'd have the qualified person there, and you should be just soaking up whatever information, whatever knowledge happens, and reasons why as well. So on older vehicles and cars, you can effectively, there's certain points that you can strap to and mount off because they're more metal structures. When you have more modern cars, a lot of it is plastics or carbon fibers, and they can have give and this, so you might need to address it differently. So either put in fixture bars or scaff mounts as well, or come off a different area and fix off there.
Fixture bars.
And
scaff mounts.
So you can. There'll be grips who have their own personal car rigs, which will be either. It's effectively a lot of it is a case just full of metal rods, and then coupling fixtures that will fix them together, and mounts either by suction mounts or there may be certain clamps, and there'll be a variety of all these different size tubes, and effectively Meccano, and you build whatever is that you need to build, whatever angle it is, whether it be, it might not even be on a car, it could be on, if it's like on Holby City or on Casualty, where there's the trolley wheel, that shot, that's not someone walking along with it, that's a mount built off and built down side to hold the camera and the weight in a fixed position, and just watching the wheel just do that. So it's varied enough that way you can apply it to completely different things all the time. So yeah, you have different size rods, and you work out, okay, I need to counter the weight on this side and do this, and it's got to hold that. If it's a light trolley or such, and you want the camera and everything down here, if it's too heavy, it will tip. So you might need to build outwards this way. If if you're going through a doorway, then you've got to strap underneath. So it's taking all the variables into account.
And that's why you always take photos of your work as you go, either for your learning, for your actual qualifications, or also just for your records of how you achieved something.
It's like that was a good solution to this particular problem. Or you can upload it into Shitty Rigs. So Shitty Rigs is I think it's a Facebook group. And some of them are creative solutions.
To interesting problems?
Yeah. Or interesting solutions to creative problems.
That's just described the industry as a whole.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, there's a Facebook group called Shitty Rigs, and it's great.
And especially for juniors who are looking to get their first roles, what are some other kind of Facebook groups that the grips department would?
Ooh, okay. The best way in order to, I think, get in with the grips, if you're being freshly introduced into the industry itself, I would say to everyone, start as a runner if you can, because it introduces you to the most departments throughout as well, and will get you a good baseline for how everyone works, being locations, production, grips, lighting as well. If you feel you have more of a affiliation, is that the word?
Affinity, yeah.
Affinity, that's the word. If you have more of an affinity towards grips and more interested in what we do and how we work, then yeah, talk directly to us, because if we're able to, extra hands, great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And that's to everyone as well, because I know it's been seen as a very male job for decades as well, but it is something that anyone can do. It's where the work's smarter and harder as well. We have more female grips and grip trainees as well that are just coming into our department, and it's great because there's different aspects and angles that we're finding out. Everyone's just learning how everyone works, and we all work together. It's a role, it's a job, and it's really good.
Yeah, gripping is very much, at least from how it seems to the outside, very much a collaborative department. Like you can't kind of be a lone ranger when you're having to work together to construct something.
Yeah, it's if anything, it'll just take longer, and you know, if you need to lift something heavy as well, you'll need to incorporate other people, and it's very hard to put a camera on one end of a crane and then the weights on the other end.
And
not impossible, but it's very, very hard.
And I want to highlight something you said, which is often to end up in your dream department, you go there via another department, and that is completely normal in the industry, and it is an advantage because it gives you a perspective on other departments. Just make sure that you are delivering for the department you're working in before you try and network with other departments, because often, A, that's a great way to annoy the people you're currently working with, and B, the best way to get in with other departments is have people in your department intro you with a recommendation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, something as simple as this person's a really hard worker.
But if you talk to a grip as well and someone shows interest, and it's like, oh, I'd love to do this. It's like, oh, well, what department are you working with? Oh, I'm with locations as well. It's like, okay, great. And like, we'll get on with our work, but then I may talk to you later on and go, so Tom was interested in the grip thing. What's he like? And it's from that. And that's our background check. It's like,
And you, of course, Danion would say he's fantastic.
And I've never worked with anyone like him.
That's a non-specific answer.
I know.
That's
I'm
a
very
political
proud. Yeah.
Yes, it's like one of a kind.
Yeah.
So just finally to get from my head, do grip trainees pay for their own NVQs? Is that something they pay for as part of their own career progression?
So when you go from a trainee to and you have your step up and uncertified, and that's a recent test that they've been doing. I'm not certain as to whether they pay for that. I don't think so, but it's to just ensure they know what they're doing, and the step up is a good time for them as well.
So does anyone pay for it? The production paying for it?
No.
It's just the organisations that run grips.
Yes.
Do these just to check that everyone knows what they're doing.
But the MVQs, when we go for the qualification, yes, that is a paid for thing. So I'd pay personally for myself as well. And that's in order to, so we're given a book which we need to fill out. We have an assessor which we'll communicate with, and it's normally within a year. So after you step up, you have 2 years of getting to experience and experiencing what you have as a grip. You're no longer a trainee at that point. So if you do step up, you don't step back down, because that decision was made for the time. And so with that, once you've done your years of experience and getting on set, meeting with other operators or directors and photography and such, you get your own sort of knowledge and experience, and people can vouch for you on other ways as well. And then doing your MVQ, you'd ask them to either write a statement about you. So you have to have someone, and then you have your logbook of your equipment and your rigs, the reason you did these things, your risk assessments that you've made. You'll be tested on aspects. You either go out to the assessor or they'd come to you on a job and we'll just observe, or might ask some questions throughout the day. But if you're doing a particular rig thing, if there's a scene, or if you have a mini jib in today as well, a jib effectively is a smaller crane. They'll be assessing you on how you're working with people. Are you agreeable? Are you looking at the safety aspects as well? How have you organised this? And there are multiple levels. They'll come in several times, and you have a year to complete and submit.
There's a certain amount of work you have to do within that year.
Yes,
to get the qualification.
Absolutely, and you have to show your work with dollies and static rigs, so non-moving rigs, whether that's built from something or it's on, if it's unmanned at that point, and then motion rigs as well. And then you'd be assessed on as many elements as possible within that section. And then for the MVQ level 3, you have to have, I believe it's 5 years of being a level 2, and you get drilled more with operators and all the rigs as well. You'll be more in charge of, you're working on cranes and platforms and weight bearing loads, and it's far more in depth. We really get tested.
I'm curious, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Doesn't even need to be about the industry.
Never eat yellow snow.
Damn it, if only you told me that last Christmas.
Doesn't taste like lemon. I'd have to go back to no one's born knowing any of this. Because it just clears the plate for everyone. So anyone can just come in and discuss and do all these things. If you don't know something, it's not a problem, because even if you forget something, it's fine. Or if it takes a while to learn, that's fine. It's all fine, because no one's born knowing any of this.
I find if you can use driving in your head as an example, because driving is something you only learn obviously from the age of 17 or up. So when you see people and they can't drive, no one goes, well, that's ridiculous, Can't we all drive? It's like, no, it's a thing that you have to learn to do. It's just like a common thing. So if you can apply that when you're on a film set, it's like, not everyone could drive, Yeah,
and that people go through the zones of competence. So you start unconscious incompetence, you don't know how to do it, and you don't know that you don't know. You're just like, I could probably drive, and then the first time you're like, wow, I am so much worse at this than I...
It's like a spaceship. It's like
so many things to think of. Yeah.
And then you go to conscious incompetence. You're like, I don't know how to do this, but I know that I don't know how to do it.
And it varies as well. So you have manual driving, and then automatic driving, and then there's other sorts as well, and different pieces of equipment. It's like, I can drive a tractor. It's like, no, you can't.
It's amazing how much life is. You're like, oh, I figured this thing out. That means I can do these things that are similar. And you're like, not really, my guy. And then you get to conscious competence, and you can do it, but you have to think about it. So you're like, okay, that's when you just pass your test and you're moving. Okay, I need to change gears. I need to check the mirrors. And then you get to unconscious competence, where you just do it and you don't think about it.
And you realise I've been driving for half an hour and I'm not. I'm on the route that I've always done. It's like, oh, okay, it's not that I've been unconscious. It's just a case of it's just automatic.
Yeah, and you'll see people do things, and you're like, how are they able to do that and chew gum and walk at the same time? It's like they are higher in that competence matrix than you are at that thing at that time.
That's why I liked learning from different grips as well, because people have different levels or different ways they've approached different
Techniques and kit and
absolutely. It's great.
I have a final question for you then, Paul.
Ooh.
So you said
10 inches.
So you said that you've done some tutoring.
Yes.
What would you say is the most common question that students ask you?
Funny enough, it is where we started off. What is a grip? Because there is a difference between effectively American grip and European, like UK grip as well. There's quite a difference. So where we have the grip in the UK or Europe as well in general, will be in charge of the movement of the camera specifically, or its placement. The American side, although we have a lot of American productions come over here, we still use the UK system. The American grip system as well is very much into lighting as well. So they'll do the stands and the big flags that will cut out the light as well, normally called floppies, or they have silks as well, which will diffuse light in the situation. They're also mainly part of the lighting crew as well. Anything analog, effectively, anything that isn't digital and plugged in. The American grips will also be in charge of that. So I've had shoots over here before where we've had an American director or an operator as well, and they'll be going, yeah, okay, like, so we'll have a track down here as well. That'd be fantastic. Or if you can put a floppy up here, it'd be amazing. Sure. I'll talk to the Sparks about that bit, because they do that while we'll sort this out.
Great accent, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So what do the Sparks do in the States? They don't have
the Sparks will be directly in charge of the lights themselves. The lights, the electric and plugging in the generators, and they'll be on the desk. So yeah. So there is that difference, because everyone always comes up on the credits. It's like, what is a grip? What is a grip? But yeah, that's been asked a lot. But in terms of the tutoring that I've done, it was done over at NFTS over in Beaconsfield, National Film and Television School. So some of the days I worked directly with focus pullers who are training there, because their role themselves, is learning how the lenses work and the distances and how to do their things. But then if you're in a static position, that's fine. You can work off an actor coming forward, back, up, down, change of focus. But if the camera's moving, which will be my role, then that can change everything. So if there's a movement with the camera and there's a focus moving as well, your focus point, then it's an entirely different part of a skill. So that was interesting for them, and then realizing how much we actually do and how close we go. We'll set marks for ourselves on distances and movements. It's best to know the type of scene we're doing again. If it's a fast one, what's the character? You don't need to know the motivation, but what's the pace of it? Is someone coming in and sitting down because they're tired at work versus someone coming sitting down because they're angry and they're stressed? There's different movements, different speed, and that will change how we work as well, because that will all change.
Thank you so much for your time, Paul. I've learned absolutely so much about gripping that I'm surprised how much more I learned having worked on set. If people want to hire you for work, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Right, so I am part of a diary service, which does cover sort of camera and grips as well, so which is Gravy Crew. So you can look up gravycrew.co.uk and look at our grip section, and I will be amongst the names there of the fine individuals on that list. And there are other diary services that will do such as well. Just look me up. My details are everywhere online. So.
Cool. So we'll include your Instagram in the show notes, and people can DM you and all that fun stuff.
Mr. What's my Instagram? Mr.Mischievous.
I love it.
You'll find it. A lot of grips will have will build up their own brand, either via their name, or they'll have logos or an association like Aztec grips or Viking grips, which is someone I just worked with as well. So my one actually is
Mischief grips.
Mischief grips. That's just because I like jokes.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good.
And we work long hours. Like, it makes it, like, people say humor's the best medicine. True, but if I had cancer, I'd want chemo rather than a comedian. But I'll tell you what, it makes days on sets go a lot better. All right.
Amazing.
Thanks so much.
Paul.
Thank you as well. Yeah, that's been great.